We're in Daf Kuf Ches Amid Beis, and we're about to go into the sugya of not doing medicine on Shabbos. Halacha is that since usually they created their own potions, they created their own medicine, and that required grinding of whatever spices or whatever ingredients were being put into the potions. And so you couldn't apply medicine on Shabbos, whether it was something that somebody ingested or something that was smeared on the body, unless it was something that was done even for healthy people, and then there would be no concern that you would change that you would make it on Shabbos, and that you would grind up the ingredients. Or if it was the person was ill enough that they were nafal mishkav, there was something that they caused them enough pain that they would change their habits of the day and they would not be able to function in a normal way. But if it was just a mechash ba'alma, it was just something that bothered them a little bit, but they can go on and their day as is, so then you couldn't apply a medicine even if it was already prepared. So the Gemara is going to go through various questions of what is included or is not included in this prohibition of not using medicinal potions on Shabbos for minor ailments. So the Gemara told.
Could you just a moment? I think it's connected here, but could you explain kind of what is Shaveh L'chol Nefesh? You mentioned certain things that are like common, everybody uses it. What I assume you're talking about Shaveh L'chol Nefesh, or is that a different?
No. That's a Shaveh L'chol Nefesh is a permissibility of cooking on Yantiv, or really doing certain malachas on Yantiv, lighting a fire on Yantiv, for a typical need, a need that is common amongst people. That's Shaveh L'chol Nefesh. That's specific to Yantiv and to cooking on Yantiv, and there's a hayil, and then there's the concept that where it spreads, even if you already don't need it necessarily, but they could need it. That all pertains to Yantiv. If we're talking about something that is commonly used not for medicinal purposes, that would be allowed to be used. So, for instance, we'll see certain foods that are beneficial. So, somebody wants to eat bran flakes on Shabbos. They're feeling constipated and they're not feeling all that good, but not enough to call it nafal mishkav, to not be well enough to maintain their regular day-to-day activities, and now they want to eat cereal, bran flakes. Oh, great! That's it's a normal food. The fact that it also gives them a medicinal benefit is not going to count as medicine, and they can do it. But something that is only eaten medicinally, that cannot be included. That cannot be eaten on Shabbos. So we'll see that. Unless, obviously, a person is nafal mishkav. They're ill enough that it changes their habit of the day, and they're going to not be able to function. So we saw that the Rabbi Yirmiyah was on the banks of the Yam Suf, and he was asked whether you're allowed to wash yourself with some of the water which has healing properties, and he said, yeah, that you can do. And then he was asked, what about putting some on your eyelids and then opening, closing your eyes, where it's going to go into the eyes and heal the eyes? I mean, it burns terribly, but I guess it had a healing property. Amalei Zula Shamati. I didn't hear about this. But I did hear about something similar. I heard from Rabbi Zera sometimes in the name of Rav Masna, sometimes in the name of Mar Ukva, but Tarvai Mishmeid Avuda Shmuel V'Levi, and both of them said this teaching in the name of Shmuel's father and Levi. And they said, Chad Amar, one of them said, Yayin ayin aser. You're not allowed to put wine into the eye, even though because it has healing properties. Al gava ayin, but on the eyelid you can put mutter, that you can put it, even though that it's going to fall in, because that's not medicinal in that way, or that it's it doesn't look like it's being done for medicinal reasons, because some people also do it to wash their eye that way. And one said, roik tafel, saliva, that from if you hadn't had food, so the saliva is pure as it is. Not only you can't put it in the eye, but you can't even put it on the eyelid and let it fall into the eye. And now the Gemara wants to prove who said which. Did Levi say that you may put wine on the eyelid, but not in the eye? Or is Levi the one who said that you can't put saliva on the eye? And Shmuel's father is the one who said that you're not allowed to put wine in the eye, only on the eyelid. Let's prove that Shmuel's father is the one who said that you can put wine in the eye, on top of the eye, but not in the eye. Shmuel, because Shmuel, his son, said a similar thing. B'Shabbos, a person is allowed to put a piece of bread into wine and then put it onto his eyelid, and on Shabbos. So since Shmuel said a similar idea of putting wine on the eyelid, must be his father. He heard that from his father, and then his father is the one who said that you can put wine on the eyelid but not in the eye. Now, the Shmiele, man, who did he hear this from? Lav the Shmiele mi'avua. Wouldn't you say he heard it from his father? So Gemara says, well, we have another statement of Shmuel. If you're going to base it on that, by that reasoning, Hadam Shmuel roik tafel afila gaba ayin aser. This that Shmuel says that saliva you can put on top, even on the eye, is prohibited, and that's a statement from Shmuel. The Shmiele miman. Who did he hear that from? If he heard that from his father as well, so that means that neither of these two statements came from Levi. Rather, one he heard from Levi, one he heard from his father, and he taught them both, even though he heard one from his father and one from Levi. We don't know which one came from which. Amar Mar Ukva Mar Shmuel. Continuing with this idea of eye potions or eye remedies, whether you can do them on Shabbos. So Marukva said in the name of Shmuel, Shara Adam Kilurim Erev Shabbos, a person is allowed to take this bandage that's soaked and put it on the eye, if it's soaked from before Shabbos. And he puts it on the eye on Shabbos. So this is an eye compress of some sort, and putting it on Shabbos is okay if he had soaked it from before Shabbos. We're not concerned. And Rashi explains, even though that it's medicinal, he does this because since he was required to prepare the eye compress prior to Shabbos, that's indicative of a reminder of don't create a potion on Shabbos, and that's why he's allowed to do this.
So question, then why is it not permissible to take medicine on Shabbos? If you've prepared it in advance and you have it sitting available, why can you not take medicine?
No, only an eye compress is this true for. This is true for kilurin, this eye compress, because that didn't require creating a potion. It's really something available, and since it's available and it was prepared before Shabbos, so that's permissible. Rabbi Yonasan Shteif is of the opinion. There's one of the poskim of the previous generation that basic over-the-counter medicines that you can find in all homes, like Advil, Tylenol, etc., you may take on Shabbos for that reason, because it's already prepared and everybody has it. So it'll be similar to this eye pack, this eye compress. Others disagree and say that no, that too is medicinal in nature, requires breaking Shabbos typically to get it, and therefore you may not take it on Shabbos. Of course, you can take it if you have a headache or an ailment to the degree that it's changing the way you're going about the day. When you're not allowed to do it is where it's just a mild ailment and you could go about the day without taking any medicine. It's just an annoyance. It's bothersome. Mechash ba'alma. It's just bothersome. So that's where you can't take it.
But there are other. I mean, is it just there? We've seen before that you're not allowed to treat your eye. You're not allowed to treat an eye ailment or a problem with an eye on Yom Tov. On the second day of Rosh Hashanah, you couldn't do it. You have to wait till, because it's Yom HaRichta. I mean, there's a whole thing about eye problems that you're not allowed to treat it. So what's different about this that you're allowed to use it?
Because it's just a compress. It's not a potion. It's just something available in the house. You don't have to make a remedy. You don't have to create grinding some sort of potion.
So what's in the compress?
It was some sort of soaked materials. So it's more the material that it was soaking. So a gauze of some sort. So Bar Levi have a koyek hamei the Mar Ukva. Bar Levi was in front of Mar Ukva. Chayid have a mayit patach. He saw that he's blinking his eye, so he put some sort of liquid on the eye and opening and closing it. Amalei kula hayvada l'shar Mar Shmuel. Something like this, Shmuel for sure would not have permitted. Shalach le Rabbi Yanai l'Mar Ukva. Rabbi Yanai sent her on Ukva. Lishtalon Mar mahanach chilurin Mar Shmuel. Shmuel was a great healer as well. So send me some of these kilurin, some of these patches, eye patches. Shalach le shadur meshadan alach. He said, look, I'm happy to send you some of them because I don't want you to think that I'm being stingy. I know that I have a narrow eye, meaning I don't want to share with you. But I'll give you more than the patches itself. I'll give you good advice from Shmuel. Tova tipas tzoyne in shachris. Some cold water on your eyes in the morning, and washing your hands and feet with warm water, with hot water at night, are better than all of the eye compresses that you can think of. This is the best. The best way to keep your for eye health is wash it with cold water in the morning and wash your hands and feet with hot water at night. Tanya Namachi, we have a brice like this. Amar Amuna Meshumar of Yehuda in the name of Yehuda. Tevetipas Tzon and Shachris. Rochitza Sedayim Raglaim Becham and Arvis. Mikol Kalun Shabbat. That washing your eyes with cold water in the morning and hot water, your hands and feet with hot water at night is better than all kilurin of the world. He would say that when you wake up in the morning, you should not touch your eyes or any other bodily orifices. And as said, you'd rather lose your hand than touch any of these because it could be it could injure you, it could cause you harm. Yad la'ayim is the hand, tikatzit would be chopped off. Yad lachotem to your nose, tikatzit. Yad lapeh, hand to your mouth, tikatzit. Yad la'ozen, tikatzit. Touching your ears. Yad la chasuda. So this is a wound of bloodletting. Yad la'ama, to hand to the male organ. Yad lapita bas, to the rectum. Tikatzitz. Now on Kuf Tes Amid Aleph, legigis, into a barrel. That's you're putting your food. You want your beer into. Tikatzitz. Yad mesame, because the hand touching the eyes can blind the eyes. Yad mechareshes, the hand can make you deaf. Yad ma'ala polipus, and it can cause bad breath, or and Rashi says touching the male organ, because it can cause a semen emission. Baruch atah. Tanya Rabbi Nosson Amet. Brisa Rabbi Nosson says, "Bas chorin this spirit of the hands, or the germs of the hands." Different opinion in the Rishonim. It is free to damage, and it's particular, meaning it will not be washed away unless you wash your hands 3 times, and that's what we wash in the morning 3 times, 1 on each, alternating. Rabbi Yochanan said puch, which is the blue dye for the eyes, maver bas melech, or bas chorin, it removes this ailment. And stops the tears, and extends the eyelashes. Rabbi Yossi said similar, that this blue dye it has these properties. In Marukva said name of Shmuel, alin, a certain grass. Ein bahen mishum refuah. Taking them on Shabbos is not going to be medicinal, because other people, because it's eaten as a normal food as well, or because it doesn't really work, it doesn't heal the eyes, and so it's not considered medicinal. Amar Yosef kusbarta, ein bahen mishum refuah, kusbara. Rashi says it's coriander. Others say it's something else. It does not have a medicinal powers. Amar Rav Sheshes kishus emem mishum refuah. Rav Sheshes said that kishus, some say it's hops, it doesn't have refuah, doesn't have a healing property. Amar Rav Yosef kusbarta afil kashali. Rav Yosef, who was blind, said that coriander is even this kusbarta is even harmful to my eyes, and I can't see, so it was like painful to my eyes. Arav Sheshus gargira afil di mali, and gargira is good for me. I don't know what gargira is. Rashi says orago. It's good for my eyes. And Rav Sheshus was blind, and he said even for his eyes it's good. Amar Maruk v'Amar Shmuel, kol mine kishus sharu. You can eat any type of kishus, besides for teruza, because teruza is only eaten as a medicinal thing. And so the other types you can eat because people eat it regardless of whether they need it as a remedy or just as food. So you can eat it on Shabbos. But something that's only taken for medicinal things, so then it's a potion, and we're afraid that people will grind it to make a potion. Rav Chisda. So Rav Chisda said, "Sharika tavia shari, the apuebe aser, to baste your meat with some oil and egg is permissible, but to scramble an egg for it is prohibited because it looks like you're ready to cook the egg." The wife of Zeiri prepared a dish on Shabbos, some meat for Chiyav Arashi, but he wouldn't eat it because she had basted it with this egg and oil. Well, to your teacher I do it, and I prepare it this way, and he eats it. But you won't eat it. And Zeiri l'tamei, and the reason Zeiri would eat it is because he held the Amma Zeiri. A person is allowed to put clear wine and clear water into a filter on Shabbos, even though that some impurities will be filtered, since people would drink it even without the filtration. So therefore, you're not really doing anything. And this is a relevant halacha. If somebody wants to use, say, a Brita filter for their water on Shabbos, so if it's drinkable and people do drink the water without the filtration, So then you're allowed to do it because in any case, it's drinkable. So you're not really separating bad from the good because it's drinkable as is. Whereas if the water is really not drinkable without filtration, then you can't do it on Shabbos on account, and then you'd have to prepare it before Shabbos because you're separating out the impurities, and that's prohibited using a device. Alma, keeping the mishtati, since it's drinkable this way, even without the filtration, so lav midi kavitz is not really doing anything by filtering it. Hachanami, keeping the misakalachim. So too over here, since this is eaten as is, lav midi kavit is not really doing anything by adding this basting. Vama Mar Ukva said further, Misha nakva yadei, a ragloi, somebody who got a wound, bruise on his hand or his foot. So Tzom is allowed to put pressure with wine to relieve that the swelling. And that's not a concern of medicine on Shabbos. Ibaylu chala. What if he's not going to use wine? If he's going to use vinegar, what about that? Amar Rav Hillel, Rav Ashi. Rav Hillel said to Rav Ashi, Ki Avina Beir of Kahana. When I was in the academy of Rav Kahana, the house of Rav Kahana, Amri chala. He said we can't use vinegar. Vinegar is clearly medicinal. Amar Rava said, "V'hani b'nei Mechuza." However, the people of Mechuza, which were very wealthy and somewhat Romanized, so they're very wealthy and particular. Kiva them afanki, since in particular, so even wine is healing for them, and they're not allowed to do that on Shabbos. Ravina ikla be Ravashi. Ravina came to the house of Ravashi. He saw that he was putting pressure with wine agaba the kari on his leg, and that he was using vinegar. He saw that a donkey stepped on his leg, and he was putting vinegar on it to pressure to remove the swelling. Don't you follow the opinion of Rav Hillel, who says that you're not allowed to use vinegar? No, there's a distinction. When it's just a wound, then it's a pain, so that you can't use vinegar because you're not allowed to use medicinal things such as. But on the back of the leg, on the upper side of the foot, and the upper side of the back of the palm, meaning the back of the hand, both of those are much more painful and dangerous, and therefore you're even allowed to do a potion for that. Whether it's a serious illness, and therefore you're even allowed to create the potion on Shabbos, or just that it's painful enough that you're allowed to use medicine, but you're not. But it's not life and death, or potentially life and death that you can create the potion. As a machlokes Roshana, Rashi seems to say that it's actually could turn into a life and death issue, and you're allowed to create that potion on Shabbos. That goes that far. Those that say, some say that he wasn't using vinegar, he was using wine. He said to him, don't you follow the opinion of Rava? That wine works for the people of Mechuzah because they are particular and refined. And you are also refined and particular, and therefore for you, this would work as well, and so you're not allowed to do it on Shabbos. And his response was the same, that the back of the hand and the upper side of the foot are different, and for that you're even allowed to use this potion. Amar Adabar Masna Amarav Yad v'Gav Regel Arei Kamaka Shel Chalal Mechalan Avos Shabbos. The back of the hand and the back of the foot are actually dangerous, Rav says, and therefore it's like a ailment, injury to the cavity, and it's considered life-threatening, and you are allowed to heal it on Shabbos. You're allowed to bathe in these waters that are slightly salty on Shabbos. They're cold and cold water, and you can go in and you can wash yourself, even though that it also has salt in the water, and therefore it can heal. But it's only a bit of salt water, or it's a fresh water thing, and so therefore you're allowed to bathe in there. But not in the Great Sea, which is the Mediterranean, and not in a water that is usually meant for soaking flax in order to make linen, and not in the Dead Sea, because these are heavily brined, a very, very strong salt component, and they're medicinal. It's not just washing off dirt; it's medicinal. For a minute, we have a contradiction. But there's a brisa that says you may bathe not only in the Kinneret, which is the Tveria waters, but also in the Great Ocean, which is the Great Sea, which is the Mediterranean. So that's a contradiction. But you can't use waters for soaking flax and the Dead Sea. So Kashi Yamagadol Yamagadol. So we have a contradiction about the Yam HaGadol. So the Gemara is going to try and make a comparison to the laws of mikveh and tumah. With the halacha of mikveh is rainwater must be stationary. Spring water that comes from an underwater source is allowed to be flowing water in order for it to be a valid mikveh. Actually, the term mikveh means gathered water. It wouldn't be a valid mikveh; it would just be valid as a source of tvila. But the term mikveh would be a misnomer there. But we call all of it mikveh. So it would be valid as a mikveh in flowing, even if it's flowing. What about the sea? The sea doesn't come from an underwater source in the same way as a spring, as a nachal, as a stream, but it's also not stationary. It's constantly flowing back and forth. So there's a machlokes whether all oceans, all seas count as a mayan or a mikveh, and therefore whether some other halachas apply to. So for instance, as whether a zava can go, or a zav can go to the sea because they need mayim chayim, need fresh water, which is a spring. Other places where the Torah obligates this. So the Gemara says there's a machlokes between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, and in regards to how to classify the Mediterranean. So the Gemara wants to compare and say what's medicinal and bathing on Shabbos is going to be based on whether this is a fresh water, considered fresh water, or mikveh water in regards to mikveh. And the Gemara is going to say, what kind of comparison is that? But the Gemara first attempts that. So our Rabbi Meir, our Rabbi Yehuda, the Tananas we learned, Kol hayamim kemikveh. All seas are like mikveh, and they do not count as mayan in regards to zav's tahara and using it for red heifer water, etc. Because Shanemer, it says in the pasuk in the creation, ula mikveh hamayim kara yamim, into the gathering of water Hashem called yamim, seas. So we see the sea. The sea is essentially a gathering of water. Rabbi Meir, that's Rabbi Meir's opinion. However, Rabbi Yehuda says Yam HaGadol k'mikveh. No, it's only the Great Sea, meaning the Mediterranean, that's like a mikveh. Even though that it says all the seas, but that's the Mediterranean counts as all the seas on account of that many other oceans and rivers come to there. Rabbi Yossi says, all seas actually can work as a mikveh. We're going to call it mikveh, even when it is flowing. However, they don't count as fresh water in the sense of that they would work for zavan and metzora, which require going to mikveh of a mayan, and it also won't be fresh water in the sense of that it would be able to be used for the red heifer water. Maskef lo Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman challenged that. Maskef lo Rav Nachman beyitzchak. Eimer, and now we turn to Kuf Tesam at base. Eimer the pliga leinian tuma v'tara. The machlokas is only in regards to tuma and tara, whether it counts as a mikveh, whether it counts as a mayan, but in regards to whether it has medicinal properties and whether you're allowed to wash yourself with it on Shabbos. Leinian Shabbos mishamis le. That wouldn't. Did you hear the halacha about that? Elamar of Nachman Yitzchak lakashi hadi ishtay hadi lo ishtay. So Rav Nachman Yitzchak said it depends on the mannerisms of the person going in. Is he wash his face with it and move on? So fine. So he's just washing with it. Is he going in and soaking in there? So that's medicinal. So what are you? How are you explaining the second brisa that says that you're allowed to use you're allowed to go into the Mediterranean? That he didn't remain in there. Well, if he's just washing his face with it and he's not actually, sitting in there and soaking himself for a while, he's just washing himself with it. So then, even in this Mei Mishra, this water that's made for soaking flax would also be okay. The Tani we learned because we have a brisa that says you may wash yourself with the Kinneret water or the Mishra water or the Dead Sea water. Even if, and he's allowed to do so even if he has some ailment, skin ailment on his head, on his scalp, he's allowed to do it because that's secondary. Because he's just washing his face with it. As the Brisa says, and that's only if he didn't, soak in there. But if he's going in to soak, then it's prohibited. So then even Mei Mishra, so the second Brisa cannot be talking about that. Rather, we're going to have to say that there's no contradiction between the Brisa that says you may wash yourself with the Mediterranean water and the one that says you may not. It depends if you're using the nice waters, the clean waters there. So that's something that even on a weekday you would wash yourself in there. And it's not made for medicinal things. But in the dirty water, then you wouldn't be doing it to wash. You're only doing it for the medicinal reasons. So that shows that it's medicinal. Mei Mishra lekasha, and what about the flax soaking waters? Lekasha there depends whether you're just doing it instantaneous or whether you're remaining in there and soaking it. The Mishnah is going to go through some other potions that are permissible or not permissible, and the Gemara is going to give us some remedies. Ein oichlin izavion. You may not eat izavion on Shabbos. Because healthy people don't eat it. It's only eaten as a potion, as a remedy. But you're allowed to eat this ezer, and you're allowed to drink abur barua. These are essentially things that people, even if they're healthy, would eat. Any food you can eat, even if you're intending for the healing properties. And you can drink anything. Besides for dekel water. Dekel is a palm. Because ikrin and a cup of waters that made out of roots, which has it has power to whatever, it would sterilize people. Because these things you can't drink on account of that it is used for healing yellowness, jaundice, which is essentially a liver ailment, a hepatitis of some sort. But if he's thirsty, then he's allowed to drink this palm water. And he's allowed to smear this ikrin, this root oiled, if he doesn't intend for a healing. I'm Rabbi Yosef. Azov, when the Torah mentions Azov, which we translate often as hyssop, So that's Avrasa bar Hemek. So that's this certain plant. But Izavion, which is, it starts off with the same word in our Mishnah, that's something else. That's Avrasa bar Hing. That's a different plant, and that's what's you're not allowed to eat because it's only medicine. Ula Amar Marua Chivra. Ula says that it's this plant Marua Chivra. Ula Ikla Be Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda. Aisel Kamei Marua Chivra. They brought this plant in front of him. Amar Haino Ezov. He said that actually is Ezov that's in the Torah. The Chsiv for it says Oraisa in the Torah in regards to spritzing on the cleansing of the Metzora and the Paraduma. Rav Papi Amar Shumshik. It's this other. That's what is considered Azov. Rabbi Yirmiyah Medifti Kavaseder Rav Papi Mistabra. It's logical like Rav Papi that it's this Shumshuk. The Tanam we learned mitzvahs Azov Shlosha Kalachim. The way to properly do the mitzvah of Azov, which we translate as hyssop, but whatever it is. So the mitzvah of Azov is to have three let's call it branches of it. And each branch should have 3 branches off of that. And this plant shumshuk it grows in that manner, but this other plant, the Maru Chivra, doesn't really grow in such a way that it has branches off of branches. Lamai achlile, and for what ailment is it usually eaten? So this is eaten in lekukiyani for somebody who has worms in their gut. So b'mai achlile, and how do you eat it? B'sheva tamri yochmasa, with 7 dark dates. B'mai havia, and how did this ailment come? B'kimcha desari dechalaf alei abayim yamin. When you eat something made out of barley flour, and the barley flour had not been used in the first 40 days of its process, of its grinding. So it's old barley flour, so there's worms. But the Mishnah says he can eat your ezer. So my ezer, it's a putnak. Again, Rashi gives us a French name. I'm not sure what it is. What potion is this eaten? What is it eaten for? For what ailment? It's eaten for worms of the liver, so a different type of hepatitis. How would you eat this? With 7 white dates. And how did you get the ailment? From meat that had been roasted on coals, so raw meat on coals and water, on an empty heart, meaning that you hadn't eaten anything else beforehand. Or from fatty meat on an empty heart, meaning you hadn't eaten beforehand. Or from bull's meat on an empty stomach. Or from some nuts on empty stomach. And from the shoots of rubia, which it is another it's some sort of legume. On an empty stomach. Mashti maya, and after you eat any one of these, you drink water abasre after it. The loy, and now if this potion doesn't work, livla tachli chivrisa. So then you should swallow white tachalayim. The loy leisa batanisa, and if that doesn't work or he can't get that, so then leisa batanisa, then he should fast. Velesi bisra shamna, and then he should take fatty meat. Velishte agumri, and put it on coals. Velimits garment, and you should suck out the juices from that meat. Veligma chala, and drink some vinegar. Ve'ikadarmi chalaloi, and some say no, don't drink the vinegar afterwards. Mishum de kasha lekavda, because actually, even though that it can kill the worms, but it's also bad for the liver. Viloi, and if you can't do this potion or it didn't work, laisi gurda de esinta. Then bring the bark of some sort of shrubbery, the grida ma'iloi tatai that you pulled off of the off of the shrubs from up downward, but not from the bottom upward. Because if you pull the bark off the tree from the bottom up, so then it can actually bring the ailment out through your mouth, and that can harm you. And let this bark soak in shechar, in beer, beishivi, either from a neighbor's beer, or let it soak in beer at sunset. And the next day, after when we're ready to do the remedy, so all of the orifices of this of the one who's ill should be sealed and close them up. Velishti, and he should drink from there. And this way, the potion remains inside as long as possible. When he finally is ready to relieve himself, he should leave himself on the place of this decal of the tree where the bark had been pulled off. The shosin abur barua. The Mishnah further said that you can drink abur barua. So my abur barua, what is that? So we say this is chumtaria. What is that? My chumtaria. So chutri yichidai, a shoot that grows individual of a shoot without branches coming off of it. Lamai avdile, and what ailment does that heal? Legiluya, it heals somebody who drank water that had been left open overnight, and there's a Chazal prohibit drinking such water because there's a concern that a snake may have put some of its venom into the water, and it can kill a person. And if he doesn't have this, so what should he do? Or you can't do this. So leise chamshe kalili v'chamshe kusta the shichra. He should bring 5 roses and 5 cups of beer, minishalkinu ba'adi adadi, and soak them together. Ad kaima anpeke, until it and you should cook them together. Boil it until it dilutes down. Sorry, not dilutes down. Until it condenses down to the measure of an anpaki, which is a quarter of a lug. Vanishti and drink it. Now, imi the Ravachta Boy Barami of the Leilahu Gavrach Chad Kalila v'Chad Kusta the Shichra. She made 1 cup of beer with 1 rose, and cooked it v'shalki v'shkise, and gave it to him to drink. Vishigra tanura, and put it, and she heated up the oven. V'grafte, and then took out the coals. And put this brick inside for him to sit down and not get burned. V'nafka kuhutza yarka, and the venom came out of him in the form of a green leaf. Ravavia Amar Avisa the Chalva Me'iza Chivrasa. The potion for this is actually a quarter lug, or revius of milk from a white goat. Rav Huna Bar Yehuda Amar Laisi Esrog Chalisa. Take a very sweet esrog, V'lechake, and hollow it out. V'lemal Yeduvsha, and fill it with honey. V'lesve be milili denura, and put it inside a fire on top of coals. Let it roast this way. And then eat it roasted honey esrog. That urine from a 40-day-old baby is barzina lezibura. That measure is good for a wasp sting, and ravia. And the measure of a ravia is good for an akra, for a scorpion sting, and palga, and half of palga ravia, and a half of that for legiluye, for having drunk a drink of water that was left overnight, and riva afilich shafim ala, and a quarter is actually good even for somebody who's being struck down by black magic. Amar Rabbi Yochanan and Nigrun. This is a drink for avanger with tiraika. These are waters that different grasses have been cooked and soaked in them, and they're used for potions. So ma'alu bein legiluya bein lechshafim, good for water that we left overnight and for black magic. Haiman the bali chivya, and what about somebody who swallowed a snake itself? Lechle kashisa b'milcha. You should eat kishus, let's say hops with salt. And you should run 3 mil. He saw somebody who swallowed a snake. Idmale keparsha, so he made believe he was a soldier and scared him. And he made him eat this kishus with salt. And he chased him by tlasamili, 3 mil, in order to heal him. And nafik mine guvi guvi, and the snake came out when he relieved himself. And it came out in broken parts. He himself was the one who swallowed this chivya. As Eliyahu, and Eliyahu Hanavi came and made himself look like a parsha, like a soldier. Forced him to eat this kishus with salt. Made him run 3 mil.